Whew. Come on. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mario. I'm autistic. I have ADHD, and I got my diagnosis at the age of 28. First of all, this is part 2. So please watch the previous video so that you have some context about what I'm talking about. By the way, while I was editing that video, I was a bit surprised because I look so logic. It almost looks like I'm giving a lecture to someone. That was definitely not my intent. Maybe it was because of Ritalin, I'm not sure, but doesn't matter. I'm not gonna do it again. On top of that, today I'm gonna stand because I feel like it's better so that I can move, and if I can move, I can focus. ADHD things. Okay, so quick disclaimer. I will base most of these comments on my experience. I'm defining no rules about how an autistic person looks like or a person with ADHD looks like. I mean, it's not like you can understand that by the appearance. How can I relate to everything I discussed during last video? So first of all, let's talk about strong beliefs. So I think that it's no news that autistic people tend to have strong beliefs, and sometimes they look stubborn. Somehow I can see where this is coming from. I think that people sometimes consider me stubborn, but as a matter of fact, we often know what's right and what's wrong. Again, this is subjective, and it's probably difficult to change our mind. Also, personally speaking, I think I have the tendency to have a sort of obsession for fairness. Normally, I get very angry when someone is treated unfairly. I'm sure this doesn't help, but that's how I'm feeling. But there is a good news here. One can improve over time. Everyone, I think, can improve over time with experience. I think there is no doubt that it's relevant to listen other people. Actually, I often want to get feedback from people so that I can understand them and not feel confused about some of their decisions. The problem is people, in order to explain me things, they need to have self-awareness, and not all people do. In fact, I absolutely hate when they tell me that's the way it is. Don't do that. And now let's talk about emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and manage one's own and others' emotions. Let me comment this quickly. Recognizing one's own emotion is not easy, especially for people that have alexithymia. And that's the case for me, unfortunately. Just to give you an idea, recently I learned how to distinguish anxiety from an headache. I know they have nothing to do, but that's how it felt to me. So this is already difficult by itself. Now let's talk about managing one's own emotion. Of course, if you don't know how you're feeling, it's difficult to take action in order for you to feel better. And that's one of the biggest challenges I am facing nowadays. By the way, you can also have alexithymia and not know it. I discovered that I have it after my diagnosis, so a couple of months ago, while doing my research about autism and ADHD. So the consequence of this is that I often feel overwhelmed and I don't even know why. Now let's talk about interactions with people. So of course every person can influence other people in some way or another. The thing is, the main way to connect to people is verbally. So autistic people tend to be very direct or honest, and this leads often to bad feedback. I think that one of the aggravating factors for me is that I have ADHD, so I tend to be kinda impulsive when I'm talking. But of course, I learned over time that before speaking, I should think about what I want to say and how this could be misunderstood. But this takes a lot of energy. Anything that is not natural takes energy. I think that everyone can relate to this. And then there is recognizing the emotions of other people. This can also be challenging. For example, in my case, when I got diagnosed, I did a test. So there were several images of people's faces, but you could see only the eyes. And then you had 4 choices. All of these were adjectives or emotions, and the point of the test was to guess how the person is feeling. That's difficult, by the way. My score was not too bad, but not too good. And that's the thing. From my experience, people expect me to understand social cues, body language, and so on. And of course, I have somehow a basic understanding of them. But in general, my preference is always to be told. And the reason for this is that I don't necessarily trust my judgment. So, but yeah, the consequences of this is that people get angry at me, or I get ghosted, or people get offended in general, and I don't even know why. I try to communicate with them, but they don't communicate with me. So when people do that, I take for granted that they got offended for something, and I'm completely unaware. So don't be that kind of partner that says you should have understood it. That's not the way it works, at least for me. But I will give you another example. Recently, I had a discussion with like close friends and family members. So I tend to, when I talk to them, I tend to be very open about how I'm feeling. And if I'm feeling negative or I've been feeling negative lately, I just tell them when we talk, which is not very often, by the way. And yes, they would listen, but pretty quickly they would change topic. So at some point I started to ask, why do they do this? And why don't they care about me? But that wasn't the reason. I asked every person. And they all basically explained me that when you meet a friend or like a family member, when you talk with someone, when you talk to someone, so when you have a meeting with someone, so people want to get, so the point is that people, shit, I don't know how to explain this. The point is that people want to get distracted when they meet someone or when they talk with someone, which is completely understandable, by the way. And talking consistently every time about the negative parts of my life was was not wrong, but didn't make the other person feel good. And I understand it. So one needs to find a balance. I thought I kinda had this balance, but apparently this is not the case. So I tried to find a compromises. So of course in this example I was talking about close friends and family, but it's true that people want to get distracted. But that's not the only thing. I kinda understood over time that people perceive me as a person that complains a lot, and I don't know why. Because normally I just talk about how I'm feeling, and for me it's like telling a story to someone. Normally I don't convey emotions when I tell what happens in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but still this is perceived as a complaint or having a negative mindset, and I can understand it. So it's good to know you cannot work on yourself if you don't get feedback. That's why I like feedback. Please give me feedback. Next point is empathy. I'm a bit tired of hearing people saying you have no empathy, you don't understand, blah 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 blah. From my point of view, I understand. But why does it happen? This is so annoying. You can't believe it. And I actually found out that this is called the double empathy problem. So basically, autistic people and neurotypical people are very different. When it comes to social situations, there is definitely a reciprocal lack of understanding and also a different communication style. Also, we have different social and cognitive characteristics and different life experiences. Just to give you an example, when a friend of mine is telling me that she's struggling and she explains me why and so on, I tend to be a very solution-oriented person. So somehow to troubleshoot, but over time I kind of understood that people don't want advices, or when they talk about their problems, they don't want to find solutions. I got this even before getting my diagnosis, and to be honest, I understand it. Does it make sense for me? I don't know, probably not, but now I know it and I can change my behavior so that my friends feel a bit better about talking with me. So again, you can definitely improve. I can definitely improve. And over time, I learned how to communicate like other people do. The problem is, of course, I can force myself to communicate like other people do. But this is an action. This doesn't come natural to me, like for other people. So this definitely takes a lot of energy. For me, it feels like I always need to filter what I want to say, and I cannot say what I want to say, but I need to think about my sentence 10 times before saying it, and how this could be misunderstood. Yeah, but I'm repeating myself. And this is stressful. This is an action. This is not something that comes natural to me. And doing this every day is just exhausting. So I really appreciate when people don't get offended and they just give me a chance to be myself. But another problem exists and will keep existing. That is that I can understand people, I can communicate like them, but they don't understand me or they cannot relate to me. And this is definitely an obstacle when it comes to connecting to people. But this is especially problematic with family and close friends, because I think that no one really like when their family and close friends don't understand the struggles that I have. And I think that over time I understood that it's very difficult. I can try to explain it, but they can just get a fraction of how I'm feeling, because they are not autistic, they don't have ADHD. So they cannot understand how it feels to be autistic and to have ADHD. But when it comes to communicate, especially with strangers, is that I noticed that many people are not able to see beyond themselves. I don't know if this can be called ego, but not being able to see beyond yourself is not good. This is true for everyone. If you don't do that, you cannot improve as a person. And I have to say, I think that the majority of people are unwilling to understand me, especially strangers. And now let's talk about communication. I completely agree that meeting in person is better than chatting. But this doesn't mean that it's not challenging. The problem with having such discussions face to face is that immediate feedback is needed. And this can be unbelievably difficult for some autistic people. When you talk with someone, especially about very sensitive topics, you need to make decisions on what to say and what to do in real time. And this can lead to problems like selective mutism, but I think that people see that as a sort of brain lag. I don't know. Some autistic people need like several seconds to answer questions or elaborate their answer. For me, this is less than an issue, because I have the opposite problem. I tend to be very impulsive when I'm talking, but this is not useful when you need to have a sensitive discussion. Just to give you an idea, I was recently on holiday. I was in a hotel. I was sitting. I wanted to have breakfast. And the waiter came and he told me, "Do you want hot or cold breakfast?" And I froze basically, because I was expecting to have a buffet. I think it's very common here in Austria, but the place was indeed too small probably to have that kind of business model. But I didn't expect that comment, that question, so I completely froze. And in the end, I ended up giving choosing a random answer, and then I regretted it and went back to the waiter and told him, "Yeah, that's a mess." I'm digressing. But making decision requires an understanding of how you're feeling. And as I said, this is difficult. I personally need time to digest some questions before giving an answer, but I can also not multitask completely, and I think this is ADHD. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed by my environment, it's even more likely that I freeze. And now it's time to talk about healthy and unhealthy compromises. It's so difficult to pronounce these words. So I'm the type of person who always look for compromises, but there is a catch. Normally it's too late. when I understand that it's time to make a compromise, it's probably too late. The situation already escalated. And the problem with being autistic, but also having ADHD, is that we tend to be very persistent. I am very persistent, and this leads to getting stuck in situations and relationships that are toxic. And even when I manage to get around this situation and make a compromise, I always feel like I end up in a winner or loser situation. Because the thing is, things that are difficult for me, very difficult for me, are very easy for some people, or they are completely natural for them. So people cannot see the effort that I'm making to change. So I often feel like I am the only one making sacrifices, and I often end up feeling unheard and disrespected. Of course, I didn't know why I felt this way, but I didn't really know why. I didn't really know why things that are difficult for me are easy for others. Now I know why, and I can try to do my best also to communicate that some things are very difficult for me and explain why. So this was very long. Let's do the sum. In a nutshell, autistic people and neurotypical people are very different. And from my point of view, compromising is not the main problem. Because before even making compromises to people, you need to connect to them. And if you are a person like me, it's more likely that people don't see you as part of their group or as the odd one. I actually feel that way very often. I have often the impression that people stare at me and that they perceive that something is odd about me, but they cannot tell what it is. And that's definitely not a pleasant feeling. So from my point of view, most of the times I'm the one who wants to make compromises, but the other person doesn't. So the willingness of people to compromise depends on strong connection, communication, and self-awareness. And we autistic people tend to be not very good at it. And for all these reasons, I say that making compromises is difficult for me. Not because I don't want to, because a two-way willingness is needed. Of course, connecting to people is not impossible. I can develop very strong connection to people, and that's very quickly. And this is also a problem. I feel often overwhelmed, but I think that we just need to find the right people. I think this is true for everyone. We match with specific type of people, but this is especially true for neurodivergent people, because we are different. Okay, I am done. Probably some people are already sleeping. So please subscribe to the channel. Please click the like button. Click the like button. And comment if you have something constructive to say. If you have something stupid, please don't comment. I think that I forgot to say something. Please click the bell icon. And for those who live in Vienna, Right. For those who live in Vienna, I have, again, 2 meetup groups. One for autistic people and or with ADHD, and a second one for neurotypical people and neurodivergent people. And the main language is English, so you don't need German. Please join the group. Peace.